All right, good evening and welcome to this part two of the Prairie Village Candidate Forum featuring candidates running in wards 4 through 6. You might have been here to see the forum for wards 1 through 3. We appreciate you sticking around. Maybe if you came in the middle of it wanting to see your wards, here they are from left to right as you look at the table up here, wards 4 through 6. So this is generally the more southerly half of Prairie Village. So we do appreciate those in the audience being here tonight, and we appreciate the candidates as well. So to save time, I'm not going to go through my whole rigmarole, but I did again just want to note, for those of you who might just be arriving or weren't here for me to say it at the beginning, as many of you may know, a group of candidates, 3 in these races, 3 in the previous races, 6 total, decided collectively not to participate in this event. Those candidates in these 3 races include Kelly Sullivan Angles in Ward 4, John Beater in Ward 5, and Dan Prusting in Ward 6. So the spaces are available for them if they do show up, but we are going to hear from these candidates who are present tonight as well. Again, the stated reason for not wanting to participate is they wanted all 12 candidates on the stage at the same time. That was the reason they ostensibly gave. So I leave it up to you to decide how that impacts your vote, if at all. But just wanted to make that clear that the invitation was delivered to them, and we wanted them to be here because we think it does make for a better event when we are getting contrasting views. So we'll hear from these candidates tonight, very similar to the event you just watched. Give them a chance to make an opening statement. I have some prepared questions. Prepared to ask them. They'll all get the same questions, might get some follow-ups from me as well. I do have a stack of questions asked from the previous forum, but if you have an index card on your seat and you have a burning issue or question that you want to ask about, write it down on that index card, pass it to Leah, who will be circulating around the room, and she will pass it up to me, and we'll try to get that asked. Of course, there's a lot of you, a lot of questions. I'm not going to get to all of them, can't make that promise, but if I see some common themes or it's clear that the audience wants to ask about something in particular that I'm not going to ask about, I might prioritize that, or if I see kind of a, what's the phrase I'm looking for, but anyway, if I see several questions about the same topic, then I might also prioritize that question as well. So with that being said, let's jump right in because this library closes at 8 o'clock, so I want to make sure that we get these candidates as much of a chance to talk about as many issues as possible. So going from left to right, we'll start opening statements with Nathan in Ward 4, give you a chance to start us off with an opening statement. You'll each get 60 seconds.
All right, I'll try to be brief. I'm a bit of a talker. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm Nathan Villette, running in Ward 4, Prairie Village. I'm a proud father of 3 and lucky husband to a lifelong educator in this city. We love our city, and I want to ensure that this is a place for our future generations to love and live as well. It feels right for me tonight to be in a library. My wife is a school librarian. There's 3 things that I've seen up close about libraries that I admire. One is that they welcome everybody into their doors. They also organize information from truth versus fiction, and they help people find answers to their questions, right? So, thank you. I get more time now when you applaud. And so that's the kind of city I want. That's the kind of councilman I want to be. I want to be a listener. I want to be helpful. I'm a helper by nature. And so thank you for coming tonight. I hope I can earn your support. Thank you.
We'll move down the line now to Ward 5 and give Betsy Lawrence a chance to give her opening statement. Betsy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Betsy Lawrence. I'm running in Ward 5, and thank you for coming, neighbors. Thank you to the Post for hosting, and thank you, Corinth Library, for hosting as well. And thank you, everybody who brought a book for Operation Breakthrough. We'll make sure those get there. If you didn't see the bin on the way out, on the way out, you can drop your book. So I'm a new candidate for Prairie Village City Council. I've never run for public office before, and I'm an independent candidate. I'm not running on a slate of candidates, and I speak with my own voice. Part of the reason that I'm running is my husband and I are longtime residents of Prairie Village. Our daughter actually just bought a house in Prairie Village with her fiance, and so we're now even further vested in the community. I feel that we have benefited tremendously from living in a community that values things like public education, our public parks, our streets, our public works, and our neighbors and our neighborhood. So I feel like I'm at a point in my life where I need to give that back to the community. As a mom, as a business executive, as a lawyer, as a certified mediator, I feel like I have the skills. I'm currently an adjunct professor of law at KU Law School. I feel like I have the skills to be able to meaningfully give back to the community.
So that's Betsy Lawrence in Ward 5. We'll give the last opening statement to Jim Sellers in Ward 6.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jim Sellers. I'm running in Ward 6, and I'm running because after a career in corporate America that has taken me all across the country to some great towns. Here I find myself for the last 8 years with my wife and my 2 dogs, Lewis and Clark. in Prairie Village. And I appreciate, even more than those of you who have spent your entire lives here, what it is that we have. That's why I'm running. I want to give back to my community. I want to be involved at the point where real people get real services from their governments. I might add, too, that both Ron Nelson and I are running to represent the older folks in the room, and I have a particular specialty in those who don't have any hair. So if that helps, I would appreciate it. I'm experienced in corporate America. I've succeeded because I've built high-performing teams. I'm comfortable with budgets, and I get results.
We started the last forum with the same question that came from a reader email, so I'll start you off on this same question as well, and the order falls to Betsy Lawrence in Ward 5. And again, just to remind you all, so these three candidates, 4, 5, and 6, their opponents, Kelly Sullivan Angles in Ward 4, John Beater in Ward 5, and Dan Prusson in Ward 6, choosing not to participate tonight. The question came from the reader. I'd like to hear the candidates talk about how they think a thriving Prairie Village could look 10 years from now. In other words, what is your vision for healthy growth and change? This comes from a reader email. We'll give each of you 90 seconds to kind of stretch your legs a little bit and expound on what you see as your vision for Prairie Village. Betsy Lawrence to begin in Ward 5.
So what I see Prairie Village 10 years from now is what we have seen from Prairie Village over its entire history, right? Continuous, deliberate improvement. Thoughtful and deliberate. Preserve the charm and the character of the community, but also embrace the future and make sure that we are doing what we can to ensure that Prairie Village continues to be the great place.
We'll get you back online. That's done it a couple of times. That's what I was worried about to start. Yeah. It'll reset.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So if that happens, I mean, it's happened a couple of times, so I apologize. Betsy Lawrence, continue what you were saying. I do apologize.
So I was talking about, I think, continuous improvement. And that does take smart and wise investment in the future. I remember when my kids played at Prairie Village Parks, and they'd have to use the porta potty, right? We now have shelters, we have running water, we have flushing toilets. So those are the kinds of thoughtful and continuous things that I would like the city to continue to do. So again, you know, our daughter and her fiance who've just moved to Prairie Village continue to have what my husband and I had when we raised them here.
Moving to Ward 6, Jim Sellers, your vision for Prairie Village in 10 years, what would it look like? What would be healthy growth and change in Prairie Village?
Well, I think the theme here is incremental change, not revolution. And that's part of what has got us to where we are today as a city, and we should maintain that. 10 years from now, I intend to do my part to be sure that the city continues to enjoy its AAA Moody's bond rating. I would also like, in a particular area of interest for me, would like a increased emphasis on environmental stewardship. I'm a big fan of native plants. We've just organized a group in our neighborhood to take over the island for bees and pollinators. I could go on, but the critical priority to leave to our kids and our kids' kids a better environment than that which we inherit is, I think, a responsibility that we all share.
And going back to Ward 4, Nathan Vallette, this question, what is your vision for Prairie Village in 10 years? What's your vision for healthy growth and change, as the questioner put it?
Sure. I think at first, I think we still need to maintain a healthy mix of demographic in our community, right? And what I mean by that is young and old. Young families being able to afford to live here, families being able to stay here for 30 plus years and maintain their residency here. I think both are important issues, so a healthy mix of type of people in our city will be very important. So I want to see that. I also want to maintain the safety of our community. I think it's a big reason why people like to move to Prairie Village, and a thriving business sector. I think driving people to our different corridors, such as the Village Shops, Corinth Square, even some of our other business development areas in our city will be very important. And lastly, continued investment in our roads. walking, bikeways, things that get people maybe outside of just vehicles, but being able to go around our community in other ways. I think that'll be important. But at the end of the day, we need to change with the times as the times change and find out what the needs are of our residents and adjust as we can and as they fit in their budget.
Well, the order follows to Jim Sellers in Ward 6 to start this next topic, and we'll give you 60 seconds now from here on out. So the topic that, of course, is kind of dominating this election and discourse in Prairie Village is the new City Hall project. So I'll ask a few questions about that. And I did this prelude in the first, but just in case some people are watching that don't kind of get the context, the City Council earlier this year settled on a roughly $30 million plan to build a new City Hall along Mission Road while expanding the current police headquarters into the current City Hall space. So that's kind of the two-part nature of that project, a new City Hall and an expanded police department where the current City Hall is. That project is currently tied up in litigation, and of course some residents, again, aligned with your opponents who are not here tonight, have argued that project should be put up for a public vote. This is going to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, infrastructure project in Prairie Village history. Do you support the plan to build a new City Hall and expand the police department without a public vote? Why or why not? We'll start with Jim Sellers.
I do support it. And I think one thing that has gotten lost in this discussion is what's the problem that we're trying to solve. The current facility was built to largely residential code. It has wood construction. It's not completely sprinkled. There are arc flash issues in the electrical system. It's built to pre-9/11 security. Plaintiffs and defendants find themselves sharing a single bathroom in the municipal court. The police department have insufficient bays for their fleet of vehicles. In order to move ahead as a group and a community, we all need to align on what the facts of the situation are. Let's start by agreeing on what those facts are. What's the problem that we're trying to solve? Develop options, and then move ahead. I support.
Yeah, and I'll ask all of you some follow-up questions, but Jim, to you first. So you make a persuasive case for why we need a new City Hall. So why not take that case to the voters? That's maybe what your opponent might say. So why do you not support a public vote?
I think that there is a reasonable discussion to be had at some point in the future, independent of this, about under what circumstances the public should vote. Right now, the government is set up so that elected individuals represent the interests of the people. These are very complex matters. The city has been remarkably transparent in the information that it shares about this 4-year process and the 18 some odd options that have been evaluated. So transparent, it's opaque, it's so dense to sort through. I think that one area in which the City Council needs to do a substantially better job is asking, what are we trying to solve? What does success look like? What's it going to take to get there? And what options have we considered? Right now, the people who are calling for a vote, I think, want to vote no.
Nathan Valette, the idea of a new City Hall, expanding the police department without a public vote, do you support that? Why or why not?
Yeah, I do support it. I was the first candidate in Prairie Village to file to run this year, and I got off to a fast start, meeting the chief of police and the city administrator and touring the facilities. And we need new facilities especially for the police to do their job, but also for city staff to do their job to the best of their abilities. It's just needed. And for our city staff to have come up with a financial plan to make it happen without increasing your taxes is, I think, another positive thing. Having to answer for if the public should have the right to vote on it, it's a difficult question to answer. The people who are bringing that question to bear are not here. I'd like to hear their reasoning. My immediate answer would be, we are representing you, so if you feel like you're not getting the right representation, then I'm sorry for that. We'll do better. But at the end of the day, we are in charge of representing our city and making tough decisions. And I think that this is a tough decision, but I think it's the right one.
And you mentioned the cost, so $30 million, that's the kind of maximum price that kind of listed in the discussions. Of course, opponents have pointed out that over the life of the project, that could go to $48 million. That was addressed in the first form, if you might want to address that as well. But why does the cost might strike some people in Prairie Village as big? So justify why that cost is needed and why that wouldn't raise costs and taxes in the future.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate the question. As somebody who professionally is in municipal bond financing, I do community projects and I help finance these projects for a living. Just because you have a 30-year period of time to pay things back doesn't mean you can't pay it back sooner. A lot of these bonds have a 10-year call option, a 15-year call option, and if you're in the financial position to do so, you can refinance early and take advantage of rates if they decrease. So I think there's a lot of what-ifs coming in about what if things go bad, but things could also be on the positive side down the line. $30 million, yes, the price tag is expensive when you think about it in terms of that. When you think about how we're going to pay for it, again, the fact that we're able to pay for this without raising taxes, but using existing property taxes of $4 per month per household, I think when you tell people it's $48 a year for the average household to pay for this project, if you just say, would you give $48 for the police to have what they need only, I think most people would say yes. Oh, and by the way, the cherry on top is we'll have a city administrative building that we can all use more than we can use the one today.
And Betsy Lawrence, a question to you. Do you support the plan to build a new city hall and expand the police department without a public vote? Why or why not?
So I'm not on city council, as I said, and I'm not on the finance committee, I'm not on the planning committee, and I didn't serve in any of those capacities for the last 4 or 2 years. But I did vote for 2 city council representatives in the last 4 years, and 9 out of 12 of our city council representatives from all wards, from all ranges of the political spectrum, from lifelong Republicans, lifelong Democrats, liberals, conservatives, and everybody in between did study 18 different proposals for 2 or 4 years. And they all voted in favor of this plan. 9 of the members voted in favor of this plan. And so I support the plan, but not because I think it was the best solution or the one that I would have chosen to what is a very clear problem, but because I respect our elected representatives that did do that and did do the hard work and the diligence to evaluate all of those plans. There's never a perfect plan, and I may have chosen a more modest one, but I am very concerned that what is happening now would be to overturn the vote of our elected officials, and that I do not support.
Let's move on to a different topic, and we'll start with Nathan in Ward 4 to begin this one. It does come from the audience. It says, what can Prairie Village City Council actually do to reduce property taxes? The actually in there is doing a lot of work, and so when you think about it, there's limited options for cities to truly affect in a major way a homeowner's property tax bill, but there are some things that they can do. Of course, there's also advocates out there who would say reduce it even more. I know they're going to cut the mill rate next year in 2026 slightly. Some would call for even bigger cuts, maybe even down to the state-mandated or state-defined revenue-neutral rate. So Nathan Vallette, what can Prairie Village City Council actually do to reduce property taxes? That's the question from the audience.
Yeah, and when I'm at the door and I'm knocking on doors in the community, I hear this quite a bit, and I think we're all feeling the squeeze of property taxes. I mean, again, I'm a parent of 3 young kids. I've got 1 in daycare, so that takes up most of my income. So every year that you have to pay more on your mortgage, it's hard for everybody, right? What Prairie Village could actually do, well, they're already keeping the mill levy flat. I think that's a helpful option. I think one that doesn't get talked about enough is driving support to our local businesses. 30% of our revenue at the city level does come from sales tax and use taxes, and I think the more we can drive revenue from other parts of our city budget, the more we can think about reducing property taxes in our city. The hard truth is, if we're going to reduce property taxes in our city, we're going to have to make some cuts somewhere. And so the hard part also is, well, where are you going to cut? We're finally fully staffed up. Most of our expenses go to staff and labor of the police force and administration. So now that we're fully staffed up in both, we'd have to make hard decisions there. And it would cutting a person or 2 really impact very much financially for most residents? I don't think it would.
Moving on to Ward 5, Betsy Lawrence, the question from the audience, what can Prairie Village City Council actually do to reduce property taxes? What's your response?
Again, I'll echo some of what Nathan said, but I think the Prairie Village City Council members' ability to meaningfully lower property taxes is limited by the fact that we receive only about a little bit over 16% of the overall property tax bill. Prairie Village City Council does not assess or the values of the home or appraise the values of the home. So the ability is limited. We do set the mill levy, and I appreciate that the last council vote reduced it, but it also actually slightly increased the money out of our pocket, right? So let's be realistic about what we can do. When a candidate or a council member is telling you that they can cut property taxes, I think the next question is, where in that city budget is it going to be cut, and is it meaningful? Not big dollars, but out of an individual taxpayer's tax bill, what is meaningful? For example, let's take the Public Works Department and we decide we're only going to plow the large main arteries. We're not going to plow the residential streets, right? If you tell me that's $10 when it drops down to my individual tax bill every year, I'm going to say, I want to get out of my driveway, right? So I think our ability is limited, but we need to be realistic about it. And any candidate that tells you they're going to cut property taxes, those are two critical questions.
Jim Sellers, the question to you, what can Prairie Village City Council actually do to reduce property taxes?
So the facts are, in Ward 6, the median home is worth about $435,000. That translates to $68 a month in taxes that go to Prairie Village. Of that $68, 72% fund police and public works. That's about $50. You're left with $18 a month that funds largely the administrative staff that makes this city hum. I've spent my career in business. I've dealt with large budgets. I'll question expenses as they come through, but the fact of the matter is there is not significant opportunity to make other than marginal cuts and to provide property tax relief. That's an issue that resides at the county level and also at Topeka, that have shifted a lot of tax burden away from business property tax, and it's trickled down to us.
Well, going hand in hand, talking about taxes, you're also talking about the budget and spending. A couple of you brought it up. Jim, you just kind of laid out where taxpayers' money in Prairie Village goes. So the next question is about budget and spending. We'll start with Betsy Lawrence. That's the order here in Ward 5. So next year's general fund in Prairie Village set to top $33 million. Okay. A roughly 4% increase over this year's spending total. Critics of City Hall, some of your opponents, have bemoaned this increase, characterizing it as excessive, potentially burdening the average taxpayer in Prairie Village. They've also pointed out that spending has ballooned in recent years, even as the city's population has remained relatively flat. So where do you stand on the city's current level of spending? Jim just actually kind of laid it out, so maybe that gives you some entree into this question. So do you think the current level of spending is appropriate? I kind of presume that the people who would be calling for cuts aren't up here on the stage but I give you a chance to answer this question about the city's current level of spending. Is it too much? Betsy Lawrence.
Well, I think in order to answer that question, it goes hand in hand with what value and what services do we expect out of the city of Prairie Village, right? Obviously, our budget is going to grow because our services that we expect from our community have grown, right? And the costs of providing those services have grown. One of the examples I gave earlier was we don't have porta potties at the parks anymore. We have an infrastructure that needs support and needs to be maintained to serve that. So I think that's why identifying where we would cut and are we willing to make those hard decisions to say, from a value proposition, this is what we are willing to give up. I do not see opportunities right now in Prairie Village because what I see from Prairie Village is a lot of the things that everybody tells us that we value, which are the parks and the services. And gosh, we would all like to get those for free, but we all know those cost something, right? So I don't want to be careless about spending money. We have to be smart about it, and we have to look for opportunities to ensure that we are not being wasteful, but we also have a commitment to the community to make sure that we're providing the quality services that brought us all and keep us all in Prairie Village.
Jim Sellers, a question back to you in Ward 6. So budget and spending, where do you stand on the city's current level of spending? You already started to kind of lay it out, so maybe expound on that a little bit more.
Sure. So in addition to the one-on-one conversations I've had with people and the residents, being the numbers-oriented guy that I am, I conducted a resident survey And just a couple of findings, 80% of the responders to that survey felt that they were getting a good or excellent value for their tax dollars. At the same time, about 50% said, oh, well, our property taxes are a bit high. So, I'm with them. I live here because the quality of life is worth, in my opinion, the $68 price tag that I'm paying. But at the same time, sure, it feels like a lot. It is. It's just an unfortunate reality. The rate of inflation for city services is substantially in excess of the national CPI. So it's costing more and more every year to run a city, beyond the extent to which our groceries and other services are increasing.
And this question to Nathan Vallette in Ward 4, the city's current level of spending, again, like I said, set to go up roughly 4% in the city's general fund next year. Is that an appropriate level of spending? Would you see any room for cuts anywhere?
Well, here's the thing. I agree with what both of my colleagues on the dais here have said. One of the first meetings I had was with West Jordan, the city administrator, and I asked him about how they set their budget. And they go line item by line item meticulously every year before the council even sees a proposal. And so I know that they're going through it with a fine-tooth comb. They're making cuts. They're increasing some things. They're doing what they do, and then as a council person, it'll be our job to really go in there and ask questions and poke and prod and see if everything is being done appropriately. What I will say is the people that are suggesting that over the last 5 years, this 30%, I've seen this too, 30 to 40% increase of expenses. I believe that 90+% of those increases went to the police force. And so a lot of that is staffing of the police force. But so those are the same people who are saying we need to support our police. So you can't have it both ways. Yes, we need to support our police, but to do so, sometimes you have to increase salaries, sometimes you have to fully staff up. And so those are also reasons why those expenses have gone up.
A couple of questions here about housing and kind of a new frame compared to what we heard in the previous forum. This order starts with Jim Sellers on this question. So this questioner on the index card says, they're asking how many rentals are there in Prairie Village, I think because they are concerned about potentially having too many rentals in Prairie Village. They also ask how many owners own several rental houses. So this, again, touches upon rentals in Prairie Village. A lot of the conversation, the subtext is affecting homeowners, people who own their homes, but there is a subset of people in Prairie Village that you will represent that rent. What do you say to them? How do you approach this issue? Again, this questioner may be concerned about too many rentals, but where do you stand on this issue? Jim Sellers.
Honestly, I would have to get to staff on that question. That's not that's not data that I have. I imagine Cole or Ron, having specifically dealt with these questions before. And I'll just say, part of my job, should I be elected counselor, is to be honest when I don't know something, but then go out and work to fill that void. Continuous improvement is what drives the performance of an organization. And if you think about, again, my corporate experience, think about Prairie Village as a corporation, think about us as boards of directors, to the extent that we can drive ourselves to improve continuously and get smarter, that's going to put Prairie Village in that place 10 years from now that is above and beyond where it is today.
In Ward 4, Nathan Vallette, as the questioner asked, are there too many rentals in Prairie Village? How would you approach this issue of rentals versus owning homes, which, again, the vast majority of zoned property in Prairie Village is single-family residential owned property?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I thank you for clarifying the question. I didn't really understand what it was.
I didn't understand it either, so there you go, yeah.
Rentals for or against, discuss. What I will say is, there's a lot of people, it's a nuanced issue. Are corporations buying homes in Prairie Village and renting them out, or are people making investments in their own community? What I see is a lot of families where parents purchase another home in the city for their kids to grow into. I think as long as the homeowners or the renters are taking care of their property, they're adhering to the rules set by the city, I don't see much of a problem. I don't have the data on how many rentals there are in the city. I know the city went through and they banned ADUs and other forms of housing in our city. If that's what that was trying to get towards, I'm not sure. But I do know that the city's looking at it. I couldn't tell you how many are rentals versus homes off the top of my head.
Betsy Lawrence, in Ward 5, the question to you, are you concerned about the number of rentals in Prairie Village? How do you approach this issue?
Yeah, I am not concerned actually, and I like at least in my ward, I mean, we have apartments, we have homeowners, we have rentals, and I think it provides a good mix. There were questions at the earlier panel about opportunities for senior housing and for affordability and attainability, and I think having those apartments in our ward and having more affordable is helpful for everybody in the community. So maybe I misunderstood the question, but at least from my ward, I don't see it as a big issue.
Let's go around the table again and start with Jim Sellers again. Maybe an ancillary issue to that is zoning. That was a big topic 2 years ago. Do you have any appetite on the council for potentially looking again at zoning regulations, especially in single-family residential areas? Jim
No.
Sellers.
Settled issue.
Nathan Vallette.
I would say after the multi-year process of that issue, I think it's been pretty settled. I think, I think there's another question that you had brought up earlier relating to tear downs. I don't know if that's part of this, but essentially no. I think the zoning issue is pretty settled. I do think, if the residents are really clamoring for something, then it's our job to take a look at it. But I think there was a pretty definitive stance taken on it last year.
And Betsy Lawrence, that final question to you, the idea of zoning, potentially revisiting it?
No, I don't have any proposals or intention to revisit R1 zoning, residential zoning.
Order falls to Nathan Vallette in Ward 4 to start a new topic. This one actually came up to us in the first forum, didn't get a chance to ask it, so I'll ask it now. As you may or may not know, Prairie Village voters will also face a ballot measure when they go to vote for you and the 3 other wards. And this question asks, if the ballot measure to abandon the mayor-council form of government were to pass, what would you suggest as the next step? What are you going to tell voters about what you think they should vote on that measure to, again, the language being abandon the city's current form of government? Nathan Vallette.
Yeah, I'm on record as saying to vote no. It's been a form of government that's worked just fine until recently. My question, again, back to the people who got it on the ballot is why? Why do we need to abandon our form of government? Why can't we find better ways to work together? Why can't we improve our means and methods of communication? Why can't we find ways to work across the aisle, so to speak, to make sure that everyone's voices are heard? I don't think that abandoning 15, 20, whatever years of the same form of government, whatever it is so there you go, 75, is necessary. And I think, honestly, it's worked fine. I think our city is pretty great, and I think it will continue to be that way in the future.
Betsy Lawrence, the question to you about abandoning the city's current form of government. Again, just to be clear, if people in the audience might be wondering, if that vote were to be successful, the form of government would not immediately change, because then, in fact, it would potentially be up to the next city council to maybe adopt a new form of government, maybe similar to what's currently there, but we don't know. So, Betsy Lawrence, where do you stand on this issue?
So I do not support abandoning Prairie Village. I encourage every voter to vote no on PV United's effort to dismantle our local government, the local government that we have had since 1951, the local government that has given us everything that we love about Prairie Village, the parks, the streets, the sidewalks, the community, right? So we all, everything that we value was quite literally the result of the form of government that we have. If we were to abandon, if for some reason it was to vote yes, I think we need another public election to determine the form of government that would replace it. And we'd have to choose amongst a whole series of them. I am not in favor of PV United's effort to reduce the council size from 12 to 6. I think that gives voters less voice on city council. I think if you're in a ward that you just have one representative, sometimes I agree in Ward 5 with Nick Riddell. Sometimes I agree with Greg Shelton. Having 2 members in every ward, I think, gives all of us constituents and all of the citizens more of a voice on Prairie Village City Council and our local government, not less. So I would absolutely oppose that type of a change.
And just to be clear, since you referenced the 12 down to 6, that was a proposal on a separate petition that was put forward by the group that you referenced. That's not going to be on the November 4th ballot question, but that was an idea that was at least put out there as a possibility. I don't know if you said you want...
Just to add to it, yes, and I agree with the courts that struck that down as an unlawful proposal, not only because it was reducing the council size, which that, I suppose, could be brought up again, but it would have disenfranchised half of the people who voted, because it would have taken out 6 of the elected officials 2 years short of their term.
And Jim Sellers, this question to you, if you want to respond to it as well.
If you think that Prairie Village,
Abandoning city government. That's what I forgot. I forgot for a second too what I was asking. So yeah,
I'm with you, Kyle.
Abandoning city government. So that was the question on the table. Do you support the idea or not? Because voters will be asked about it on November 4th.
I say if you think that Prairie Village is a broken city, vote to break it. Vote yes. If you don't think Prairie Village is a broken city and that we can get better than we are right now, then vote no.
Betsy, you will go first on this next question. I'm trying to synthesize a couple of questions I got from the audience, one from the previous forum that's stayed and one that's new. And it might not necessarily be a fair question to ask this trio of people, but maybe it gets into a question that I asked in the first forum. So a questioner from the audience asks, who is Prairie Village United? What do you know about this group? Again, that group and their candidates who have been aligned with them, not here tonight, but more to the point from the previous question from the previous forum, do you think maybe you would be able to compromise with people who align with that group and might be coming to City Council meetings if you are elected?
Well, I'll answer the first part of your question, which is who is PV United, and I don't know the answer to that question, and neither do the citizens of Prairie Village. So Prairie Village United is a 501c4. That is an organization that is set up to engage in political lobbying, but is not subject to campaign contribution limits and is not subject to public disclosure. So every candidate that is running for public office has to file so that all of the voters can see who contributed to the campaign, how much did they contribute, and how is the money being spent. PV United is playing a substantially active role in trying to influence this election, and we don't know where the money is coming from. We don't know how much is being spent, and we don't know anything about it. So legally, PV United does not have to make those disclosures, but I think it is the right thing to do for the same reason that the candidates have to disclose, so that you all as voters can evaluate whether you think there are any special interests or anything going on. So I would call on them to voluntarily disclose that, and I respect personal privacy, but I think the balance of private donors versus the disclosure should fall the same way in public interest the way it does when the candidates disclose our donors.
And I guess the follow-up question to you then, I mean, I guess little that we do know about them, they do say that they are residents concerned about the future of Prairie Village. They are passionate about particular issues. Again, they might show up at City Hall if you're elected. Do you see yourself interfacing with them, dialoguing with them, compromising with them in any way?
I will absolutely interface, dialogue with any resident of Prairie Village. I don't know if PV United is strictly made up of residents, and I don't know who they are. But 100%, I will absolutely engage with, dialogue with, compromise, do all of the good things that a city council representative should do with every resident of Prairie Village, and in particular with respect to Ward 5 residents.
And Jim Sellers, the question about Prairie Village United has been a very active group, and one might say an influential group in Prairie Village. So what do you know about them, and or how would you work with them if elected?
I know very little about them. I would work with them just the same way I've worked with hundreds of people throughout my career, and it begins with aligning on and agreeing on the facts. What are we trying to do? What are the facts that we need to bring to bear in order to develop options to solve problems? I am against stoking grievance. I am about solving problems.
And Nathan Vallette, the question down to you in Ward 4, Prairie Village United. How would you see that impacting your city council tenure if elected?
Yeah, I mean, look, they are neighbors. They are people in our community. The hard part is we don't know really what they stand for other than a very specific issue every year. And what's difficult about Prairie Village United is, again, I was the first candidate to file. You would have thought that they would have reached out to see where I stood on any sort of issue to see if maybe they wanted to support me. No, they have their own people they wanted to support, whatever issues that they want to support. We don't know. And that's the big problem I have. Just if I was a resident, and take me as a candidate out of it, you have a group of people running under an umbrella for city council who have already tried to slash city council in half, didn't work. But also, we don't know what they stand for, but you're going to have a small group of people controlling the city, essentially. I think we need independent voices. I think we need people who will talk with you, will go to your house, will meet with you, will have a cup of coffee with you. We don't need unilateral leadership changes in our city. But I do think, I will say, I think that group started out with good intentions to spread knowledge of an issue that they were passionate about, and I do think it quickly morphed into something that it shouldn't have been. And I do know through all the signatures of things that were done a year or two ago, some people felt a little tricked on that stuff as well. So I think that's disappointing.
Yeah, and fully acknowledging, I mean, getting a couple of questions from the audience, fully acknowledging that maybe the people best suited to answer that, not here tonight, but wanted to give you a chance to maybe answer that, because it is something that I think at the very least is on a lot of voters' minds. Now for something completely different. So service with Republic has consistently been below average. This is a question from the audience. In many neighborhoods, pickups are late, missed pickups, incomplete pickups. Do you see this as a problem? Anything the city can do about it? Jim Sellers, give you 60 seconds to start this one off.
Well, it's absolutely a problem. My understanding is that the Republic pays some six-figure amount annually in fines each year as per the current contract. I believe that the contract is up this next year and will be let for bid. I'm a strong supporter of a lowest and best bid process where it's not strictly low bidder, but there are performance criteria tied to the contract. So I'd support review of that contract as it comes due in the regular course of business.
And I think got a note from our Prairie Village report. I think the contract is up in 2027, so in a couple of years. Nathan Vallette, do you see Republic's service as an issue, a problem in Prairie Village? How would you address it, or how would you go about it if elected?
I think this is a great example of a potential ward-by-ward issue. As I've been knocking on doors and talking with people in other wards, I think the day of your service also is impactful. We have service on Tuesdays, whereas other people have it towards the end of the week, and if something were to happen where they miss it, you might have your trash and recycling over the weekend. So I think this is an issue that some wards might feel differently than others about. But again, I think it's the responsibility of your councilman to have the pulse of your community, and if it's becoming an issue, then that needs to be discussed with city and with Republic themselves. And so I think certainly any complaints of a mass scale should be investigated and talked with Republic. But as you said, I do think that that's one of those issues where some people might have it a little bit better than others.
Ward 5, how do you have it in Ward 5, Betsy Lawrence? Trash pickups.
Yeah, well, I'll be brief because I agree. We have a contract for services. We should have a service level and we should enforce it. So if we're not getting the service that we are paying for, we absolutely should be all over the contractor to make sure they're delivering, or we get another one.
Another question, we'll start with Nathan Vallette in Ward 4. That's where the order falls. Another question from the audience on an index card. What can be done to reduce the frequency of losing electricity? I believe this might be a reference to maybe during severe storms, high wind. It has happened multiple times in recent years. So any responsibility the city has for trying to prevent that, or anything that the city can do? Nathan, put you on the spot there. 60 seconds.
I mean, I wish I was Mother Nature. I think that's a big part of it. I think one of the biggest draws to our community is the trees and how much we love a tree canopy lined city. It is a problem. I mean, we all have had power outage. Some with power outages for as up to a week. I do think that those kind of things are important and they should be acknowledged with Evergy. I again talked about stressing contracts and our utility companies, working with them to ensure that they're out once storms hit. They're getting service back on as quickly as they can. Also, finding ways potentially with programs with Evergy or to find help with generators, systems like that. I know there are some programs out there to help people, on an individual basis, maybe purchase a generator. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a problem unless we bury the lines. And I will say the cost to do that is significant. And so if we're talking about the costs to replace a city hall and police station, just imagine what the cost is going to be to bury our electrical.
And is the warning going to come at 7:45, Ashley? Okay, so it's not here. Okay, so at some other branches we've done this, there's a warning at 7:45 that says that the library is about to close. That's not going to happen here. Betsy Lawrence, questioner asking about losing electricity, maybe frustrated by that, but is there anything the city can do?
Yeah, I think the city's ability to influence that or directly address it is relatively limited. I do think that we can try to influence it with Evergy and, you know, maybe even with individual property owners who are not properly caring for the trees, maybe even set up or look into providing some assistance in those circumstances where maybe the trees are not being cared for because the property owner may not be able to afford that expense. So it's not an issue that I'm super familiar with, but I certainly would be open to looking into at least that aspect of, is there an opportunity or a program to help with tree trimming that would help, you know, abate or reduce some of the costs for folks that are more challenged with those issues. But otherwise, I think it's primarily an Evergy issue.
And Jim Sellers, just the last word on this particular topic. Again, the questioner frustrated with losing electricity, anything the city can do.
I'm frustrated with it. It's happened multiple times. The fact is, the cost to as I understand it, the cost to bury the lines are $120 million, and then each individual household would be responsible for between $8,000 to $15,000 additional investment to bring the line into their house. So, you know, burying is just out of the question. I think the tree canopy is aging. The trees that we all love and enjoy so much are getting to the end of their lives. It's going to be more of an issue going forward than it is less. So I think one environmentally proactive way would be to evaluate the tree canopy across the city and, you know, determine the impact of, you know, taking specific steps.
The order falls to Betsy Lawrence for the next question. So in Ward 5, this came up in the previous forum. We just had a couple more questions as well now asked on index cards. But again, questioners lamenting the loss of the YMCA. Of course, it closed. It was also in some financial distress, but now there is not a community center, a place, a rec center to go to in Prairie Village. We talked about that at length in the first forum. Is there anything the city can do? I know these are residents frustrated by this. Betsy Lawrence.
Well, first, let me just acknowledge that I do think that that was potentially an opportunity lost because, in part, we just seem to have a divisive, whatever we want to call it, atmosphere in the city that maybe doesn't give space for good ideas to fully be vetted. So I tend to think that it would have been a good opportunity for the city to purchase that property, regardless of whether it would have been viable to develop that into a community center. At least then we would be able to have a little bit more control over the ultimate development of that property. So opportunity lost. I also would have liked to have seen, you know, maybe a potential for the City Hall project and a community center to have gone hand in hand. I'm sorry that was not something that we could have work out. So I think where we're at now is it's been purchased by a private developer, and we'll just have to see what they propose and within the, you know, existing zoning and whether the City Council can influence it at this point.
And Jim Sellers in Ward 6, readers lamenting the loss of the community center. Okay, I think I'm back on. I think it's good, Leah. Community center. Where do you?
Well, I lament the loss of the Y. I was a Y member. I tried for a while to go over to the other Y on Troost. It didn't really work. You know, I'm envious of the Sylvester Powell Center. I think it would be a great question to revisit, and it was unfortunate that because of everything, all the noise that was happening at the timing, that it was being considered, it seems to me to have been tabled. But again, I wasn't on the inside and not privy to everything.
Anything the city can do now, in your mind? Anything if you're elected?
Oh, I think the city can absolutely determine if there's you know, sufficient resident demand, you know, to reopen to the question of a feasibility study. I mean, Cole shared some information earlier tonight that I had not been familiar with, and that's I think it's unfortunate. I miss the Y.
And Nathan Vallette in Ward 4, the idea of a community center, it's no longer there, not one in Prairie Village. Anything the city can do?
It's interesting. In the last week, I've had this question come up a lot, and I do think there are a lot of young families, especially, who didn't even know about the community center, despite the fact that there were several public meetings to inviting the public to come take a look at it and hear what they had to say. I do believe that that project that was on the table wasn't the right project for our city, but I do think personally, as I talk to people in our community, as I need to back away from this microphone, that there is a demand. And so I think it will be on the city to determine, is it still a strong demand? I mean, initially they thought there was strong demand several years ago for this. And if there is, we can explore public-private partnerships, those kind of things. The issue is now there's not really property for us to do that in. And so it would take a developer to really bring something to the city to talk about a partnership. And I will say, I've never met a developer that didn't like a project that had a lot of demand behind it. So if there is quite a demand for it, I'm sure we'll be hearing about it.
A couple more questions before we get out of here. So we got another question via reader email, a topic we did not touch upon in the first form. This reader asks, Prairie Village manages a great deal of street traffic. Of course, you're right on state line, too. Unfortunately, many of the city's traffic signals are aging and contribute to increasing congestion and potentially pollution as well. Do you have any plan for modernizing this often overlooked component of our traffic infrastructure, street lights? Jim Sellers.
Again, that is not an issue that I am familiar with, and I just hesitate to speculate off the top of my head. I think it will be a matter of fact whether or not this is a true issue, and I'd like to see those facts.
Nathan Villette.
I mean, I guess I want to understand how you modernize that, but what I will say is, we just had a brand new school open that serves our community in Prairie Village, and we've had some parents reach out to me as a candidate regarding traffic at that intersection there. And I reached out to our Public Works Department, and they were very quick to take that and run with it. So they're working with Overland Park on a potential solution there. So I think our Public Works Department, our City Council has done a very nice job addressing issues as they come up. I just don't know exactly what the difference between a modern street light is versus what we have, unless we're talking better sensors, camera technology. If that's the case and it's affordable and within the budget, sure. But again, a lot of times we need studies done, traffic studies through Public Works before we make those financial decisions, and I'd want to make sure that we're spending money wisely.
And Betsy Lawrence, the question to you in Ward 5, again, maybe pertinent to this reader, but traffic signals, traffic in general, where do you stand?
Yeah, I think our Public Works Department actually does a great job with traffic and traffic studies, at least in my ward. We recently have had traffic abatement measures put in, circles that I think look honestly fantastic. I do think the Public Works actually has on their website a specific ability for residents to request when they're having traffic issues. And at least my experience has been that they're pretty quick at looking into that. So I would absolutely be open to anybody in the ward to bring forward more specific concerns and work with Public Works to ensure that those issues, if there are any, are addressed.
All right, well, we're going to move to what amounts to a closing statement. We're getting close to 7:55. The library closes at 8 o'clock. So the order falls to Nathan Villette in Ward 4. So we'll just go left to right down the aisle. And I prompted the previous forum, the attendees in the previous forum, to answer this question: what qualifies you for this job and why should voters vote for you? Take this as a closing statement, 60 seconds.
Sure. Thank you again for the Johnson County Post for having us. Thank you all for spending your evening here. I think it's important to be in front of you. It's not easy to look like a pest control guy at your door, and so I appreciate you coming to hear what we have to say. What qualifies me for the job? Look, I've had a long history in municipal public finance. I've dealt with small projects, large projects from the financing side, managing construction, managing infrastructure. So some of the hot button issues that affect our city, I know firsthand how to manage. I also managed people running a residence hall in college, so I've seen and had firsthand experience with conflict resolution and mediation, so bringing people together is important. I do think a big thing that we need to be focused on in the future is meeting people where they are. If that means we need to increase frequency of communication from the city to people through email, through digital communications, or even paper, we need to find a way to get the truth and information to people's hands so that they know what the facts are and we can make fact-based decisions for our city. I love this city. And by the way, the fact that, I will just say this, I think it's an affront to local journalism that our other candidates are not here I am a journalism major in college, and I have a strong respect for people who do independent journalism, and I think it's just ridiculous, this claim of bias, and then go out and have your own forum with your own biased moderator. Don't tell anyone else by the days. I'm not joining that, by the way, and I want to just make that clear. Thank you very
We'll
much.
cut you off for that. Okay, Betsy Lawrence, Ward 5. Take it as a closing statement. What qualifies you for the job? Why should voters vote for you?
So first, let me just say thank you to everybody for coming and for listening, both everybody that's here, people that are watching online live, and also those who will watch this. I think it's super important and really respect everyone who becomes an engaged citizen to find out about the candidates and find out about the issues. So thank you for your patience and for your listening to all of us. I hope that you've learned something or more than something about me tonight and why I really do believe I'm the best candidate to serve Ward 5. I have the life experience, I have the professional experience, and I think I have the temperament and the leadership style to really be able to to represent Ward 5 in a collaborative and inclusive manner, and to sort of bring the heat down and make sure that we are making good, thoughtful decisions. I absolutely am a person that digs into the details and will make good, thoughtful decisions for the city. I would ask you to have good, thoughtful conversations with your neighbors, and I would ask you to vote, take a neighbor with you to vote, vote for Betsy, and vote no to abandon Prairie Village.
And the final closing statement, as it were, in Ward 6, Jim Sellers, what qualifies you for the job? Why should voters vote for you?
So I think what differentiates me is my experience in corporate America, 4 decades working for Procter & Gamble, FedEx, and Coca-Cola, that experience in building high-performing teams, working with large budgets, and delivering results directly translates to the challenge of City Council. I'm committed. I'm in this not as a sideline, but as a priority, so that I can spend and devote the time to residents that they deserve. And I'm independent. I am not on a slate. There is no puppeteer behind me who's pulling any strings. I will act based on what I hear from Ward 6 residents. And what I hear is that potholes aren't Democrat or Republican. The city water supply don't have an ideology. The police department and the public works folks don't lean left or right. Let's keep the dysfunction, let's keep it elsewhere and not import it into Prairie Village.
Okay, so just a reminder, so this is Wards 4, 5, and 6. The candidate's not here tonight. Kelly Sullivan Angles in Ward 4, John Beater in Ward 5, and Dan Prussing in Ward 6. They collectively decided not to participate tonight. And our speaker's cranky right now, so that's a sign that we should wrap this up. So give these candidates a round of applause for participating tonight. And Ashley asked me if we could get done at 7:58 to allow the library staff start to clean up. It is 7:58, so get on out of here. We're done. Thank you very much.